The story I'm going to share with you now is actually a very personal story of why I'm actually so optimistic and enthusiastic about communication. So when I was about 15, at that age when you're really like looking at the world in a very simplistic way, I had a pretty dysfunctional grandmother, and she was one of those that looked at people, never said to them what she thought of them to their face, and would talk about them to other people behind their back, but spin the story quite differently every time, and it created huge problems in the family. I had no idea about this because I very seldom saw her, but my cousin one day came to me and said to me like just how bad that was for her. I mean, it had pushed her and her sister to be extremely unwell mentally because of the whole family frictions and tensions, and then I started digging around at 15 years old. I was thinking of making things work out, and my father had been affected, my other uncles and aunts, so I got all of them on the phone and gradually put the pieces of the puzzle together, thinking I had great intentions. I wanted to solve this misunderstanding and conflict in the family. So I also spoke to my grandmother and the other side of the family, and I got everything together, and I thought, okay, this is really not right. It doesn't sound like these people have even communicated. They've just misunderstandings, right? So very common. I managed to get most of the family together into a visit of her little house in Marseille in the south of France, a little village, and we arrive in the house not really prepared. I was 15, right? So I didn't have the tools or the knowledge of how to do this, just my good intention and open heart. I walked into that place trying to lead a conversation, putting things on the table. This is what people think, this is what's happened, just aligning on what the situation was, and it went so bad. She denied everything. She started to get defensive. It started to become violent in terms of verbal violence, passive aggressive as well. She then used my grandfather to chase us out after calling the police. All I remember, last time I saw my grandparents was them chasing us out with a stick from their house. That was the last time I saw them. They passed away since, and that little story, which for some is a very normal episode, unfortunately for me was a very scarring thing, because I realized that with the best intentions in the world and what I thought was empathy, I was simply not able to handle the situation, and it just got worse. So, after that I went to university, I studied psychology, I did anthropology, I did design, did lots of jobs all around people, got clued up, and I literally spent the following 27 years looking into why is it that chemistry doesn't work, and how do we get it to work. I did a lot of research on the real life interactions, not the theory that you read in books, but just looking at people who were conflict mediators, people who were negotiators, people who had just had what we call the gift of the gab and managed to get along, and what did they do differently. Collected all of that. That's also why I created Green Elephant, by the way, and that's why the slogan is Decoding the Chemistry of Human Chemistry. That led us to collect all of that practical wisdom, what I call empirical wisdom, into the periodic table, which is relatively complex. Most academics got interested in this, but most other people just go like, too complicated, I don't want to know the details of this. But this is essentially a summary of all that I found useful to help people get along. Now, then what we did is we started measuring how to actually change an individual's behavior to be in a conflict better off. In a sense, I was talking to my 15-year-old self, what would have I needed then to actually turn that conflict into something trust building, into something positive, not dysfunctional. What we're doing right now with the current crisis, in the world, there's a lot of crises, not just political ones, but in individual people's lives, in their own head, because part of this periodic table is about human interactions inside your head. So this is your inner mental models about how you think of communication, not just what you say to others. So it's a pretty complementary tool to mental wellness and mindfulness, and also therapy, and preventing people getting in conflict. So what we did is we put all of that into a simple 1 hour scan. So essentially, if you spend 1 hour doing an assessment of this on your own life, you'll get from that a pretty good idea of how you are likely to affect conflicts in your own life. This is what I would have liked to have back then. It's ready now. It's actually entirely free for the rest of the next week until the end of January. We're giving this out because we've heard a lot of people needing this, and they don't really want to invest much into it right now, but we're testing to see if it's actually interesting as a concept when you take away the money factor. If it isn't, then we'll go back to the drawing board and make something else that helps people get along and reduce conflicts. But meanwhile, if you want to test it out on yourself, this is how it works. You basically get a little questionnaire, which is an app, roughly an hour's worth of deep reflections and questions about yourself, your own behaviors, nothing to do with personality, because in fact your behaviors are way more important than your personality. If you look at science behind personality testing, you'll see that there's very little prediction of behaviors when you actually have a personality, one or the other. So this is reality, context, and a measure of your communication behaviors on multiple levels. It's a very, very accurate tool. It measures through 8 different topics, which we call lenses, and then it gives you a dashboard where you can look into that and basically see yourself in the mirror and see where you might be creating conflicts and where your superpowers are. It comes also with coaching videos, so I'm basically using this kind of interface that you see here and talking through the data so that you can understand what it means and activate it into micro habits so that you can change easily your behaviors. And it works on really different levels. Like some people use it for micro level, which is like personal growth. It's like how you talk to yourself in your head. Some people use it for team communication. They do group scans and they look at it to help their own team dynamic. Some of them look at it as HR managers at a company level. A lot of startups are testing this and using this in for the whole company to grow and have better communication. But also influencers and social media, particularly if you're looking at marketing. How do you communicate so you don't create unnecessary conflicts, or in politics? So the scan actually works on all 4 levels. It really depends on how you want to use it. It works effectively on all of them, and so you can actually get that by the link in the video below. It's an email. Basically, you just put your email and then it arrives onto our website. You can also just click on the subscribe and it's exactly the same thing that you would get in this link below. And what it does is that you arrive on the actual what we call the satellite scan, which is this. You add the cart, you add the coupon that we gave you for the 100% discount, and then it goes into the cart, you check out, and it's in your email, and off you go. You're ready to do it. You've only got 1 week. What it actually does, the people who've been doing it so far have reported these kind of benefits in terms of, I'm now talking conflicts, but obviously it helps your emotional intelligence, knowing who you are. That's one thing. A lot of people are struggling with boundaries, like where do I set boundaries without being too much in the boundary or not enough and being a walkover. That's another thing. In teams, it's helped a lot of collective problem solving, and I think really the key takeaway from what we've done with the beta testers 2 years ago already is that it turns conflicts into trust, because not all conflicts are bad. As I learned the hard way, when you actually have a conflict, you have 2 options. You either turn it into trust or it destroys trust, and it's really down to how you communicate during that conflict. So do the scan, test it out. Let me know how it can be improved as well. It's a constantly iterating thing. We're constantly improving it. It's already on its 3rd iteration since 2.5 years. So try it out. It's free. See how it helps you in your own life. Wherever you've been having tensions and conflicts, how do you transform them? Up to you. Try it out.